The 2014 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, brought to you by Georgia Public Broadcasting. The Republican race for Georgia governor.
Good evening, I'm Claire Sims, all-platform journalist for Georgia Public Broadcasting in Atlanta. We'd like to welcome our viewers and our live audience to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series originating from the GPB studios. This is the debate between the Republican candidates for Georgia's governor. Now, let's meet the candidates. They are, in alphabetical order, John Barge, the Georgia School Superintendent; Nathan Deal, who's been governor of Georgia since 2011. Governor Deal declined our invitation for debate, so tonight he's represented by an empty podium. And finally, David Pennington, the former mayor of Dalton, Georgia. Now, let's meet our panelists. Tonight, Devin Feely is an award-winning journalist for 11 Alive News in Atlanta. Walter Jones is a political reporter and news analyst for Morris News. And Sandra Parrish is a reporter for WSB Radio covering political and legislative news. Tonight's debate will consist of 3 rounds. For more information on the rules for each round, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website at atlantapressclub.org. Now, let's get started. In the first round, each candidate will respond to one question by one of our panelists. Candidates have 60 seconds to answer that question. And Walter Jones, you get the first question to John Barge.
Good evening, and thank you for participating in our debate. In your open letter to explain why you wanted to run for governor, one of the things that you said is you were tired of leadership that was lining its own pocket and that government goes to the highest bidder. What specifically were you referring to, and who?
Well, specifically, what I was referring to in that particular comment is the fact that our current governor is personally profiting from the sale of a business that was at the center of his ethics investigation at the federal level. That he's personally profiting over $2 million, while that company allegedly owes the state of Georgia over $70 million in unpaid taxes. That's leadership personally profiting while the state suffers.
Okay, thank you very much. Sandra Parrish, you get the next question to David Pennington.
Mr. Pennington, you support doing away with the state income tax as part of your platform. How would you go about implementing that, and what would you do to make up that revenue?
Well, first of all, limited government conservatives don't make up revenue. They cut spending, as we did in Dalton for the years that I was mayor, and we cut property taxes 6 straight years by a total of almost 30% while we're doing that. But the first thing we need to do is get Georgia competitive again, which we're not. We have the highest top income tax rate of all the surrounding states and the 9th highest in America. We need to cut that tax from 6% to 4% to begin with. We're going to need to cut state spending by about $2.3 billion a year, which is only 11% of state spending. And if we can't cut a government spending by 11%, I don't think we're trying very hard. Then we need to institute the fair tax, which I think the fair tax people have assured me they'll have a bill ready January 1st for a state fair tax to eliminate the state income tax with that completely. And I'll assure you, Georgia will roar again economically if we had no state income tax.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. That concludes our first round. In the second round, each candidate will ask one question of the opponent of his choice. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal. By random selection, Mr. Pennington, you will get the first question.
Yeah, my question is for Nathan Deal. Nathan, why is leader of our state, leader of our party, you have declined or too scared to come to these debates to defend your record?
Because Governor Deal is not here, he will not be able to answer that question, but Mr. Pennington, you will get a rebuttal.
That's why I know the answer. First of all, he doesn't want to defend a record that his idea of tax reform has turned out to be the largest tax increase in Georgia in 2 decades with his new way of taxing automobiles in Georgia. Secondly, every state agency is in far worse shape today than when he took office as governor, whether it be DFACS, whether it be the prison system, and who can forget the Georgia Emergency Management Agency's lack of response of clearing the roads in Atlanta during the snow jam. And lastly, the complete dismantling of the Ethics Commission for investigating Nathan Deal. And now Georgia taxpayers will be on the hook for $1 million jury awards as these wrongful terminations go through our legal system.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Mr. Barge, the second and final question of this round goes to you.
Thank you. My question is also for Governor Deal. Governor Deal, you resigned as one of our federal congressmen 4 years ago and avoided federal indictment on ethics charges centered around your auto salvage business and your improper use of your office to influence policy in this state to your personal gain. 3 years later, you personally profited again to the tune of over $2 million on the sale of that same business to a company that allegedly owes the state of Georgia over $70 million in unpaid taxes. That money could go a long way in helping the dire financial situations that your budget cuts have put many of our rural school systems in.
Mr. Bard, your time for question has expired.
Can you explain? Is the question.
Thank you. Because the governor is not here, you do get 30 seconds.
Well, I don't think the governor can explain how this type of behavior is just. Just and proper leadership makes life better for those around it. It doesn't make life better for himself. So there is no answer for this type of behavior.
Thank you. For those of us just joining us, this is the debate between the Republican candidates for governor of Georgia. We will now go to our third and final round of the debate. And in this round, each panelist will ask a question to the candidate of his or her choice until we run out of time. I'll determine when a rebuttal is appropriate. And Devin, you get the first question.
Okay. This is a question from Mayor Pennington. You have repeatedly said that Governor Deal is a conservative in name only, and in particular a fiscal conservative in name only, suggesting that you would do a better job of reining in the state budget. Can you identify 3 programs or departments that you would cut as governor?
First of all, I wouldn't be giving $30 million to the Atlanta Falcons for a stadium. Second of all, I wouldn't be flying myself and my cohorts around me to Paris air shows at $6,700 airfares and $800 a night hotel rooms. Education obviously is over 50% of the state budget. We need to decentralize public education back to local communities, take most of the mandates off that do nothing to improve educational achievement, which can also save hundreds of millions of dollars in administrative savings by doing things such as that. And there's many more I could name. But I can assure you, as Mayor of Dalton, we cut spending by far more than 11%, which allowed us to reduce taxes and also still reinvest millions of dollars in needed new infrastructure for the city of Dalton.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. Now, Walter, it's your turn for a question.
Mr. Superintendent, he's talking about the expense of education mandates. That's your department. What is your response to that?
Well, quite frankly, the state has withheld from public school systems across the state of Georgia over $4 billion since Governor Deal has been in office. That has had crippling impacts on many of our school districts across the state. Over 8,000 teachers have lost their jobs over the last several years. Class sizes are larger. Of our 180 school systems, 2/3 of them are not in school 180 days a year. They have increased their class sizes again in order to make ends meet. I've been in school districts where they have their lights turned off because they can't afford to pay their power bill. When it comes to the issue of mandates, many of the mandates that we have are federal mandates. We must test. The federal government mandates that we test. So it's very difficult to not do some of those things that are mandated by the federal government when it comes to education. So honestly, there needs to be more money put into K-12 education. It's the center of all of the issues that we have in this state.
Thank you, Mr. Barge. Sandra, you're up.
Mr. Pennington, Georgia was recently named Best Competitive Place to Do Business by Site Selection Magazine, which is an index mostly tied to new projects and expansions. Site Selection also named Georgia the #1 place to do business last November. Now, you've talked about that the state's economy has not grown under Governor Deal. What would you attribute those rankings to?
Well, that magazine, I think, has 215 paid subscribers. And it's amazing what can happen when you award them with $134,000 in state tax money to basically buy that ranking. And if you look at the history of them, whether North Carolina or Indiana, same thing happened in those states. You know, that magazine basically is one for foreign capitalists to locate a plant here. And they're going to locate a plant here if you give them enough free land, free tax breaks, and cheap labor. So that magazine is really meaningless. You're in a state that has the 3rd highest teenage unemployment rate in America, the 4th highest long-term unemployment rate in America, the 5th highest poverty rate in America. And then just this week we found out Georgia led the nation with 99,000 new Medicaid recipients because of the poor state of the Georgia economy. So I think that shows you what that magazine's really worth. And basically they were bribed to rank us #1.
Okay, now we're going to go back to Devin.
Okay. This is a question for Mayor Pennington. Given those statistics that you just cited, what is your plan to improve the economy, to improve employment opportunities here in the state?
It's been the former mayor of Dalton, which is the last manufacturing center left in Georgia. We need manufacturing spread throughout Georgia. We have the hard assets to do that. We don't have the tax and regulatory policy in order to make that happen. You know, when you look at the Savannah and Brunswick ports, best in America, best airport in the world, best interstate system in the South, best railroad network in the South, competitive utilities, great universities. If we'll come up with a tax and a regulatory plan and a vision, Georgia can boom from a manufacturing standpoint, particularly South Georgia. And it's very important for South Georgia also to be brought up to higher levels from an income standpoint. A lot of metro Atlanta tax money is having to be diverted to the poor areas of the state, and we need a lot of that money to stay here to reinvest in our number one economic engine, which is metro Atlanta.
Okay, Walter?
Since this is the Republican primary, I think one of the questions that Republican voters are likely to be asking is, what have you done, each of you, to support the party? Have you been involved in party office? Have you, I mean, other than your role in job as superintendent and mayor, what have you done for the party?
Why don't we start with Mr. Barge?
Well, personally, as a member of my own local Republican Party, I do participate in my local Republican Party. Aside from that, being seen around the state, visiting school districts around the state, being president, speaking engagements and things, and representing not only the Department of Education but the Republican Party, I believe that pretty much covers it.
Mr. Pennington?
I've contributed thousands of dollars to Republican candidates as well as the Republican Party itself. I've been heavily involved in helping candidates, congressmen, senators, governors in the past. I've been very involved in the Republican Party for a long time.
Mr. Pennington, we've talked before. I'd like to ask you a question. A lot of people have pegged you as the Tea Party candidate. You don't agree with that. Why is that?
Well, first of all, I like the support coming from everywhere. And, you know, political pundits like to label me one way or another. And the Tea Party obviously taxed enough already. They like my policies as far as low taxation and government efficiency. But also, if you look, as my record as mayor of Dalton, you know, my first year I was called the first black mayor of Dalton. We spent $8 million on a brand new community center on the poor side of town, the east side of town, because we knew it was needed to be there, and we knew exactly what we needed to do with things like that. I contributed my mayor's salary all 6 years to Dalton State College for needy scholarships for needy children. So, you know, if I'm a Tea Party candidate, conservative candidate, what I am is a conservative Republican businessman is what I am.
Thank you. And while we're talking labels, Dr. Barge, you're the education candidate, but do you see that way?
The education candidate, absolutely. My life has been education. I've been in public education for 24 years as a classroom teacher, a high school principal, an assistant principal, a curriculum director. My life has been service. My life has been to the children of this state because I know the value of an education. I know that education levels the playing field for our children. I know that what breaks cycles of poverty is education. I've experienced that. So absolutely. Right now, Georgia ranks higher than it ever has in state history in SAT scores, ACT scores, advanced placement test scores. Things are on the mend. They're on the rise for Georgia when it comes to education, and that's only good news for the state.
All right, we have time for one more question. Sandra Parrish, that's going to go to you.
Well, following up on that, you spearheaded an effort to change how students are tested in Georgia. Instead of the CRCT that students all just finished taking, students next year will be taking a new test, the GMAP test, Georgia Measures of Academic Progress. How do you feel about leaving office before seeing that test implemented?
We are well on our way with the RFP process and the development of that test. So it's in good hands. I have the best assessment director in the country. I think good leaders surround themselves with good people. And I have no concerns with leaving office before that test is implemented because I know that it's in the hands of good people at the Department of Education. There are tremendously talented people at the Department of Education to implement that test. It's been a long time coming. We're finally going to have a test that's more than just multiple choice, multiple guess, as some may call it. And we're going to be asking students to explain their work and give reasons why things are the correct answer. And that's important so that we can see students' thinking processes and can they problem solve and can they think critically. So I'm very proud for us to be making this next step to better assessment that's going to give us better direction to change our instructional processes.
Devin, we actually have time for one more question if you have one for Mr. Pennington.
Yes, I do. I'd like to ask you about the recent gun law that dramatically expanded gun rights here in the state of Georgia. Explain, you have said that you didn't believe that law went far enough. Explain that to me.
First of all, it should have included campus carry. Tell me when you're in the city of Atlanta, when you're on Georgia State's campus, and when you're in the city of Atlanta. Same with Georgia Tech. Athens, where I went to school at the University of Georgia, it's now spreading out into the city. So I don't know how you can limit it on college campuses when college campuses actually spread into the cities itself. But really my underlying foundation with the Second Amendment is not about guns. It's about freedom. And we've lost freedoms at an alarming rate in this century, this 13 years. And we need to get back to being the freest nation on earth, which we're now ranked 11th in worldwide freedom rankings.
Thank you, Mr. Pennington. That's all the time we have for questions. But now each candidate will have 60 seconds for a closing statement. Superintendent Barge, you get the first closing statement.
Thank you. My fellow Georgians, this empty podium tonight is symbolic of the absentee leadership of Governor Nathan Deal. It's pretty insulting to the voters of this state to not think that they're worthy to hear your opinions. Is he not debating because he knows that the basis of his platform is shallow and weak? I mean, we've all heard ad nauseum that Georgia is the #1 state in the nation to do business. But there are other issues in this campaign: education, ethics, poverty, health care. At what expense did this ranking come? Our children? Just last year, in the National Kids Count study, Georgia fell from 36th in the nation to 43rd in overall well-being of our children. The governor also claims the largest single-year increase in public education funding in state history. I imagine he's not here because he'd have to own up to two of the largest cuts to public education in state history. In fact, he's cut over $4 billion to public education since taking office. I imagine he's also not here because he'd have to explain why he's under investigation by the FBI. I thank you for your vote, March 20th Republican primary.
Thank you, Mr. Barge. Mr. Pennington, it's your turn.
The Penningtons have been, the Penningtons have been in Georgia since the 1700s, and every generation of Pennington has had a better Georgia to start their families in and build their businesses in until my son's generation, who's just come into my business. We can do better than what we're doing, and by working together and adhering to limited government principles of less spending, less taxes, less regulations, and open and transparent government, I'll assure you Georgia will be restored as the most powerful, successful economy in the South as we once were. Thank you for having me tonight. It's certainly been a pleasure to be here, and I'd appreciate your vote on May 20th.
Thank you both. Well, that concludes tonight's debate. We'd like to remind voters that the primary elections will be held on Tuesday, May 20th, and early voting is already underway. Our thanks to the candidates and to our panel of journalists for appearing tonight. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging tonight's debate. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club and all of the debates they'll host this primary election season, you may visit atlantapressclub.org. This debate will be archived there. The debate will also be available on demand at GPB.org. The Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series is made possible by a donation from R. Charles Loudermilk. I'm Claire Sims. Thanks for joining us, and please stay with us for a political roundtable discussing tonight's debate. That's up next on GPB's On the Story. Good night.